Our Way to a Wonderful Life message is titled, Living to be Free, Living to be Free. So we read in the Holy Scriptures that we're to speak our word, and our word will not return to us void. And so we know that as we speak our word, we're speaking from the consciousness within us, and that thoughts become words, and words become images. And so we find, as these words go through our mind, that we're to speak to that which is always for the good, because when we speak to the good, we're always in alignment with the nature of God, which is always for the good, always seeking to increase the good. So let's look at these words from the great Neville, and this is from his prayer, The Art of Believing, and he writes, "Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee." He's quoting the Scripture. "It is not a strong will that sends a subjective word on its mission, so much as it is clear thinking and feeling the truth of the state affirmed. When belief and will are in conflict, belief invariably wins, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. It is not what you want that you attract what you believe to be true. It is not what you want that you attract what you believe to be true. If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that you have received them, and ye shall have them." That's from the Mastermind Jesus. The acceptance of the end wills the means. In other words, we must focus on the results. And the wisest reflection could not devise more effective means than those which are willed by the acceptance of the end. In other words, we must see the end result. We must see ourselves doing, being, having whatever it is that good desire of our heart calls us to look for, to seek, to work for. So each and every one of us, we have something that's important to us, and we must be persistent in our speaking our word and taking the thought into our mind of what it feels like to have it, to be doing it, and to be living in the experience of it. In my work in spiritual counseling, I invariably remind myself that none of us came into this world believing in lack and limitation, failure, or struggle. These are the things that we have learned in the world in which we live. Now, some of these things that we have learned have been taught to us by people with the best of intentions, but this is where we have learned them nonetheless, and this is where we must unlearn them, for lack of a better word. The knowledge of the world and the truth are too often in direct opposition to each other, and both affect our health, our peace of mind, our level of success and prosperity, happiness and joy. In legitimate spiritual scriptures throughout history, we find people who have revealed to us that the Spirit that moves through all our minds is seeking to tell us there is a better way for us to think and believe. The Mastermind Jesus gave us insight into this when he declared, "You are the light of the world. You are the light of the world." That's you and me, he said. You are the light of the world. And if we believe what he is telling us, then we must also believe that we are so much more than mere mortals, but the offspring of our Creator, of the Spirit, the life, the intelligence, and the power which is God. And in this realization, we can begin to understand in a greater way the mystical statement, to be in the world but not of it. To be in the world but not of it. And to be in the world but not of it is to be free from blind ambition, from greed, from intellectual pride, from blind obedience to custom, or awe of persons higher in rank. All of these take us unconsciously out of the Spirit in our mind, which is always free and receptive to the new light or realization that God seeks to reveal to us. And this may be a thought, an idea, a solution, or an answer that is necessary for us to know or to have. Now, Neville gives us some food for thought when he writes, "It is not what you want that you attract what you believe to be true." And that's the truth for all of us, because God responds to us by corresponding to that which we believe to be true. And this is where we must stop and ask ourselves, are we believing the facts to be that which is true about our situation or our condition, etc.? If we believe in the facts, then we're going to keep believing that we can be poor and sick and weak or unhappy. And this becomes a stumbling block for so many people, as so often the facts can be very demanding of our attention. Yet the Mastermind Jesus told us emphatically, judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. In other words, judge to the truth that in him we live and move and have our being, and in us, God is seeking to express that greater thing still than we've ever experienced before. And so the next question is, what is the righteous judgment that we want to be true, and can we believe it is true? And this is where we must look to that part of God that is intelligence in order to have the realization of truth that we seek. It is intelligent to think that our Creator has brought us into the world to realize the greater things still, to enjoy life, to be a part of the love and the happiness and the harmony of life. It's not intelligent to think that God has brought us into the world to suffer or to struggle. Jesus didn't think so. In the Lord's Prayer, he says, give us this day our daily bread. You give us this day our daily bread. God, infinite spirit, intelligence and power, gives us this day our daily bread, and this bread symbolizes all that makes life worth living. And of course, there are those who will disagree with this and say it means that only our needs are met, but God is not a stingy God, as is so evident in the universe in which we live. So let's not be stingy with ourselves and believe for the abundant life. Just as Jesus said, I have come to tell you that you may have life and you may have it more abundantly, but you got to believe. You got to open your mind to it. You got to quit looking at the things in front of you and stop judging your life by the facts that you see, because facts change, the truth does not, and the truth is that God is seeking to express through each and every one of us those greater things still. We have been so mesmerized by the world's collective belief in separation, and it is the very thing that we must overcome in our mind if we are to live without discord in our lives. And this is why Jesus is saying, be in the world but not of the world. Politics, religion, psychology, and science all support this separation from each other first and then from God. And we have allowed them to mesmerize us into accepting something as true, which is false. The solution is so very simple, but because of its inherent simplicity, the collective consciousness dismisses it. And the solution is the very simple yet profound instruction of the Mastermind Jesus, to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind. And equally important, he said, to love our neighbor as ourselves. To love God, we must also love the divine spark of God in every living thing. In our failure to love God and the good as part of a living faith, we have given up our heaven right here on earth and created a separation not only from God, but from each other as well, and from the very good that we desire to experience. We live in a world of our own creation because we have painted the canvas of life with all that we hold to be true, and this is true in our own personal experience as well. It's true in our own personal experience as well. Now, this statement came to my attention. It reads, a wise man learns from his mistakes. This means a wise person, and it could be a man or a woman. A wise person learns from their mistakes. A wiser person learns from the mistakes of others. A wise person learns from their mistakes. A wiser person learns from the mistakes of others. Now, it is believed that this is a Zen proverb, and in this simple wisdom we have the opportunity to see what the consequences of our decisions and choices may be without having to personally experience them. And in this, we can realize that even so-called mistakes contain an opportunity for the realization of something good. In truth, there are no mistakes in the ultimate reality because God works all things to our good, and what may appear to be a mistake today could be something that draws us into a greater good than we've ever imagined for ourselves. But we don't always immediately realize that this is true, and so we go through the nonsense, and so we go through the drama. So we have to take it into our mind every day that all things work to my good and learn from the mistakes. That we don't have to live every mistake. We don't have to live in the world, and as if that's all there is. Be in the world, but not of the world. Make that realization in your mind that there's always something more going on than what appears to be, always something going on than what our human eyes and our human feelings can judge, because we're only judging from a part of life, that unseen part of life, which is greater and more infinite, is still available to us. Let's look at these words from the great Eric Butterworth. He's a minister, teacher, and author from the Unity movement. This is from his book, The Universe is Calling. He writes, "You don't discover God in your worship in the church. You uncover God in yourself, even if by the inspiration of the moving liturgy. But the important thing is, you do not leave God there in the sanctuary. You take him with you, and he will be with you in the street, in your home, in your work, and in every activity of your life. Discover God's presence. God is an allness in which you exist as an eachness. God is not in you in the same sense that a raisin is in a bun. That is not unity. God is in you as the ocean is in a wave. The wave is nothing more nor less than the ocean expressing as a wave. The ocean expressing as a wave." Now, those are simple words. Those are very simple words, much like the words that the mastermind Jesus used. We all know that Jesus spoke in parables so that even a child could understand this profound spiritual philosophy that he was teaching all of us. So in these simple words of Eric Butterworth, there's a great, great message for each and every one of us to realize that there's always more to us than what we can see. There's always more to us than the flesh and bones. There's always more to us than the physical things in our experience. There's always more going on if our mind can just be open and receptive to the great unseen, to God, to the Spirit, the life, the presence, the power of God, the intelligence of God. Let's look at those words again. Once again, this is from Eric Butterworth, the great Unity teacher, author, minister. He wrote, "You don't discover God in your worship in the church. You uncover God in yourself, even if by the inspiration of the moving liturgy. But the important thing is, you do not leave God there in the sanctuary. You take him with you, and he will be with you in the street, in your home, in your work, and in every activity of your life. Discover God's presence. God is an allness in which you exist as an eachness. God is not in you in the same sense that a raisin is in a bun. That is not unity. Why? Because the raisin is still a raisin, and the dough of the bun is still the dough of the bun, so they're not the same. So God is not in you in the same sense that a raisin is in a bun. That is not unity. God is in you as the ocean is in a wave. The wave is nothing more nor less than the ocean expressing as a wave. So we are nothing more nor less than God expressing as us, as the Spirit of us. And so we go back to those words of Jesus where he tells us to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and realize that we aren't called just to love some, but everybody. We're to love those that we like, those that we tolerate, those that offend us, and even those who hate us and those who adore us, but not just some, but everybody, because everybody is part of God. Everybody is expressing that God within us. The great Reverend Ike said, God in you has given you the power of fascination to use, to be, do, and have all the good you desire. We must become fascinated with the greater things still. Jesus said, these things I do, these things I have done. You're not called to do these things, but I was called to do these things. These things I have done, but greater things than you have done can you do too. But you must believe it. And Reverend Ike tells us to become fascinated with the greater. Become fascinated with how an increase of money will show up in our life. Become fascinated how we can move from illness into health. Become fascinated by how we can go from failure to success and how other people have gone from failure to success. And remember, a wise person learns from their mistakes. A wiser person learns from the mistakes of others. So become fascinated with life. And as we become more fascinated with life, we become more fascinated with God, because God being the creator of all things, God being the intelligence that permeates all things, God being the power that moves through all things, God being the spirit that's in every living thing, is always a part of the livingness, the givingness, the forgivingness of life. And those are the things that we want to focus on. The livingness means to live in joy and happiness and peace, to live in the harmony of the universe. The givingness is to know that all that we do, we're giving back to God in gratitude for this gift of life that God has given us. That all the things that we do, our work, we don't work for other people. We're working for the infinite. We're working for the spirit of life that calls us to do whatever it is that comes to us to do. And the forgivingness is to give up all the old noise and nonsense, all the old things that we believe, to give up and find the truth within all things, and to realize that facts change, the truth does not. Facts change, the truth does not, and the truth is in Him, in the Spirit, in the intelligence, in the power of God. We live and move and have our being, and in us, just as the ocean creates the wave, expresses in the wave all its nature and attributes, God is seeking to express through each and every one of us that greater life, that greater thing still, that willingness, that longing, that living to be free attitude, mindset that frees us from all the noise and the nonsense of the world. So we go back to those two greatest commandments that Jesus gave us and realize that it makes entirely no sense at all to not love our neighbor as ourselves, as this is one of the greatest of mistakes the world has made. In not loving our neighbor, we have denied the omnipresence, the all-presence, the all-life of God, the part of God within every one of us. And this has created chaos in our world throughout the history of the world, and the chaos continues today. The chaos continues today. Just look out into our world. Turn on CNN or MSNBC or turn on the Fox channel, and you'll find a whole bunch of drama going on in the world, a whole bunch of self-inflicted nonsense that the world continues to experience. We have been given an infinite capacity to love and to be loved, to prosper ourselves and others, and to bless this world that God has created for us. But we have let the noise and the nonsense of the world overwhelm us too often and blind us too often to God in the midst of us, to God in the midst of us. We can't see God with our human eyes. We can only see God with our intelligence, It's intelligence to know that life of God, that livingness, that intelligence in all things, that intelligence in that little seed that becomes a kernel of corn, and that kernel of corn planted in fertile soil becomes a stalk of corn, and that stalk of corn creates ears of corn, and every ear of corn has a multiplicity of kernels of corn, and we can take that kernels of corn and we can do all manner of things with it to make life wonderful, to use it for food, to use it for fuel, to use it to make all manner of things. That's intelligence. That's the intelligence. It's far greater than anything our human mind can conceive of. It's far greater than anything our human mind can even embody. But we know that infinity of intelligence is God. There's only one life. That life is God. There's only one intelligence. That intelligence is God. There's only one spirit, and that's the Spirit of God. And we draw from that spirit, that intelligence, that power, and that life every moment of every day. And that's the truth for you and the truth for me and the truth for everyone. And that's why Jesus said, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. Let God shine His light through you. Let God shine the light of intelligence, the light of power, the light of love. Let God shine that light of joy and harmony and peace and beauty through you. Let God shine that light of success and prosperity. Let God shine that light of joy and happiness and health. let God shine that light through you in a greater way today. And we let God do it by loving God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and loving our neighbor as ourselves, loving everyone we meet as a part of God, loving everyone we see as that perfect expression of God expressing life through them, as them, and for them, no matter whether they know it or not. As long as we know it, our mind is stayed on God, and if our mind is stayed on God, then we're living to be free. We're living to be free. We'll be free of all the noise and the nonsense of the world. We'll be free of all the drama. We'll be free of all those things that shackle us to the physical, the sicknesses and the illnesses and the the weaknesses and the poverty and all that stuff, the shame and the blame and the guilt and all that garbage that we've learned from the world that do nothing but deny the very truth that in Him we live and move and have our being, and in us God has incarnated its very own image and likeness, and that image and likeness is a part of God's intelligence, God's power, and God's Spirit within each and every one of us. We must take it into our mind as the truth. We must learn from the mistakes of the world and not make those mistakes ourselves. Be in the world, but not of the world. That's such a broad statement, but it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with understanding and intelligence that's so far greater than our human mind can even conceive. Let's go back to those words and end our program today with this wisdom from the great Eric Butterworth. He tells us, you don't discover God in your worship in the church. You uncover God in yourself, even if by the inspiration of the moving liturgy. In other words, even if someone inspires you, you must do it yourself. But the important thing is, you do not leave God there in the sanctuary. No matter where we are, God is with us. There is no spot where God is not. There is no spot where God is not. We take God with us, and God will be with us in the street, in our home, in our work, in every activity of our life as we recognize and realize that this is the truth. We begin to discover God's presence in a greater way, then God's good becomes available to us in a greater way. God is an allness in which we exist as an eachness. God is not in us in the same sense that a raisin is in a bun. That is not unity. God is in you and in me as the ocean is in a wave. The wave is nothing more nor less than the ocean expressing as the wave. And so it is. Amen. So once again, I want to thank you for being with me today. It's been my great pleasure.